Hey everybody, good evening. How you guys doing tonight? How's everybody feeling for a Monday evening, right? So I just wanted to come on and let you guys know that it's Monday, it's February the 5th, and we know that the jury has the trial of Jennifer Crumbley today. They started deliberating about 9:45 a.m. and initially they had 17 jurors, and what the judge decided to do, she decided to pull five numbers. The five numbers that were pulled, she separated them. She was going to have two rooms, one for the 12 that would be deliberating, and five people in the second room. And those five people were the alternates. Those would still be sequestered just in case something happened with the 12. So we have 17 total, five going into a separate judge's deliberating room, and then the 12 that was deliberating and going to decide innocence or guilt, they would be together. So it went from 17 to 12. I think the numbers that she pulled, I think it was 17, 15, number 4, number 10, and maybe number 9. I had my notes, but I left them upstairs, so my apologies. But she just randomly did a pull, and those were the five jurors that were separated and would not be deliberating. So that was done. So the jury today, they were given a lot of instructions, and mainly the instructions on the law. And I want to talk about that a little bit because in this case, they really have two different avenues to review the case. So the jury can find guilt in two different ways. They can find guilt with the standard of gross negligence, or they can find guilt. It's gross negligence, and it's also I have to reset my thinking. Gross negligence, and I don't know why I'm shooting a blank. I'm having a brain freeze. This yesterday. It's gross negligence. I'll think of the other one. But the judge is going to set out the two ways that they can find guilt. So in this case, if the prosecutor can show every element of the gross negligence of Jennifer Crumbley, the jurors can find guilt that way, and then there's a totally separate way that they can find guilt. I don't know why I'm having a brain freeze. Let me see. They can find it a separate way. It's probably because I'm so busy. Well, it'll come to me. I don't know why I'm having a brain freeze. It's two ways they can find the guilt. I'll think of the other one in a minute. I didn't bring my notes, but the other way, so they don't have to find both. They don't have to find gross negligence and the other way. They can find guilt one way or the other. So they have these 4 counts. The judge is going to go through each victim, but all the 4 counts are the same. It's manslaughter. So let's go over it a little bit. Let me go.
Extended live coverage of Jennifer Crumbley on trial. You are looking live inside the
closing argument. So on the Hidden Horror Facebook page, I shared 2 videos. One video was that the jury had already had a question before they started deliberating, and they had a little bit of confusion. They wanted to know if they had to find guilt in both areas or just one, and the judge explained it. So let's go over that first.
Extended live coverage of Jennifer Crumbley on trial. You are looking live inside the
investigator jury instruction. It's unanimity instruction.
I gotta catch up with it.
16.10 is the definition in an O.
Let you. I want you to hear. The judge went back to the prosecutor and the defense, and they kind of discussed the juror's question because the defense was wanting it handled one way, and then the judge made a decision. I want you to hear her decision about the question of how do they reconcile this question of guilt? Do they have to show gross negligence and this other thing, meaning both or one or the other? And it's really one or the other. So they had two different paths where they could find Jennifer Crumbley guilty. Either path would still lead to the guilt. Okay, so I want the judge to kind of explain that.
You are watching now as Jennifer Crumbley is leaving the courtroom. Let me go ahead and get you caught up and try to break down what just happened here in the courtroom. So the jury has been deliberating for just under 3 hours right now, and they've asked their first question of the court. And what they're asking about is they're asking, are there two different ways that we can conclude involuntary manslaughter in the case? And they were going through the jury instructions that were given to them this morning by the judge. And so what the judge said in those instructions is, she says that the prosecution has two theories. One, that Jennifer Crumbley failed to perform her duty as a parent and exercise reasonable care for her son. Okay? Or two, do you find her grossly negligent, that she had a failure to act, that it was her actions or inactions that led to this event? So
okay, so let's pause. It was reasonable care. I don't know why I was drawing a blank, but so they have two different paths. They have the gross negligent path, and this is, were their actions or inactions grossly negligent? You can find her guilty on just that, or you're looking at reasonable care or ordinary care. That is a standard. So let's talk about gross negligence for a second. So we've heard all of this courtroom testimony. We've heard witnesses, we've seen exhibits, evidence, videos, all of that, right? But the gross negligence, I actually have in a prior Facebook post. Let me find it. I know I have it. I detail what gross negligence is, and I want to give you the law. I know I did this before, but I have to go back and find it. So just give me a second to go back and find it. Oh no, it's not going back far enough. 1 second, I'm jumping on here. Let's see. For some reason, it's not going back far. Because I want to tell you what they say gross negligence is, and then I'll share a few examples. And I know we talked about these type of things already, so it's not going to be a surprise by what I say, but I still want to kind of go over it, just in case you missed a video here and there. So I'm going back. I'm just going to pull it up. I don't have my law dictionary down here, but I can find like a basic definition. So I'm just on Google, and they're saying that gross negligence refers to a person's conduct where an act or failure to act creates an unreasonable risk of harm to another because of the person's failure to exercise slight care or diligence. So in Jennifer Crumbley's case, and some of the testimony, did we see gross negligence? Did we see where she should have acted and she failed to act? For example, when Ethan Crumbley was texting, Mom, I'm having these hallucinations. Did she act? When he was texting and calling also, she didn't respond to his call. She didn't answer his call. She didn't respond to his text message for 2 days. when they had been called to the school about the drawing. Did she fail to act? Did she fail to tell the school that they had purchased a GUN? Did she fail to tell the school directly that he had had hallucinations? Did she fail to tell the school that he had been depressed? That was something that she vocalized about April of 2021. Did she fail to act? She could have driven by the home when she was on her way back to work just to confirm that the GUN was still there, the bullets were still there, and that they were safely secure and separated and apart. So that's where you start looking at gross negligence. You can look at behavior. You can look at, you don't want to insinuate that the messy home was part of it, but when your child is in a dark place and you're not there, you're not responding to them, you're not answering their calls, you're not taking them. When he asked for the mental health counseling in Ethan Crumbley's journal, he said that his mother laughed in his face, laughed at him. So did you take him seriously? Did you fail to act? Did you fail to get him the care that he asked for? Not just as a parent that you could see he needed, but also that he asked for, because that's a difference. We as parents, we have to pay attention to our kids. We have to ask questions. We have to recognize when something is wrong. And more particular, if the child is actually coming and saying, I need help, I need counseling, I need therapy, and you fail to act. So that's part of the gross negligence, okay? So I'm not gonna even try to find it. I'm just gonna look up reasonable care, and I'll give you some examples of reasonable care. Because reasonable care is a responsibility. It's a standard. It's not extraordinary care. It's not the helicopter mom that she described herself as. Jennifer Crumbley described herself, as just this great, outstanding, spectacular helicopter mom, which the testimony and the evidence doesn't support that, but that's how she had saw herself. So this is reasonable care. Reasonable care can be fully defined as the degree of caution and concern for the safety of himself, herself, and others an ordinarily prudent, that's smart, wise, and rational person would use in the circumstances. So the reasonable care is really leading to when you have someone like a child and you're their parent, you can make decisions knowing your child, their personality, their behaviors. You want to make sure you keep them safe. You want to make sure that you protect them, that you remove any harm or potential harm or anything that would be threatening, anything that would cause an issue for your child. And you also look into the future to see what could possibly happen. That's that foreseeable. Can you foresee that something will happen? So when you introduce a weapon, a GUN, and you give your child access. Now, this wasn't just access for Ethan Crumbley. They actually purchased the GUN for him. That was his GUN. So when you put the GUN in your child's hand, knowing his history, knowing his depressive state, knowing that he was hallucinating, that he was sad, that he had just experienced the loss of his dog, the loss of his grandmother, James Crumbley's mother, and also the loss of his only friend, you have to foresee that something could happen, especially when your child has exhibited behavior that is dark, that is negative, that is violent, the drawing of the pictures, the writing in the journal. Now, they can say that Jennifer Crumbley wasn't aware of the journal writings. However, the school made her aware that he was looking up bullets, that he was drawing on his classwork assignments, and that all of the imagery, all of his thoughts were dark. They were negative, and they pretty much involved images of violence. Even coming to the school the day of the shooting for the meeting, that was a very violent picture depicting someone being shot in the head, the blood squirting out, the picture, the drawing of the GUN looking very much like the GUN that they purchased him. some of the wording with the blood everywhere. We have to look at the overall picture. And can you foresee, knowing that you purchased him to GU, and can you foresee that this is something that's possible? Because again, we have to look at that standard of ordinary care, being prudent, being smart, being wise, taking into account other people's safety, your son's safety, your safety, wanting to protect others and him from himself if he was to consider something like unaliving himself. So the jury is presented with two options, two different paths. One path is, was there gross negligence in the behavior of Jennifer Crumbley in relation to her son, which led up to the events of the mass shooting? Was her actions grossly negligent? Okay. And the other path, or the other option, is looking at the standard is reasonable care, what a reasonable person would do, what an ordinary person would do. What would you do if your child was hallucinating? What would you do if your child's grades were failing and they appeared to be depressed, and they had experienced the death of a pet, then a death of a loved one, then their only best friend, they moved away. They're appearing to be pretty much alone. They're not involved in any activities. They're expressing to you that their mental thoughts and everything are on more on the depressing side, and they are feeling that their mental abilities are declining, that they want mental health help, support. What would a reasonable person do? Most people would acknowledge that and do something about that, which means just like you took him out of school for the funeral, maybe take him out of school and get him help, get him counseling, get him into a group, maybe get him involved in activities with peers. A reasonable person may say, well, I'm going to take you out to nature, take you to the farm, and see how you handle maybe being around the horses. A reasonable person might try to not wait for the school to tell you that you have to call them or call them back. Maybe you will go and talk to the school and see maybe if they can partner with you, and maybe have some resources or recommendations, or kind of advise you in a way, because you're giving them a full picture of everything that's going on with your son. Not just that he's struggling and he's having challenges with the classwork, but maybe just that his issues, these don't really involve school, but maybe they're playing out in school. Like the behavior is demonstrating, that your child may have issues outside of school. When they're drawing dark things, they're watching, violent videos, they're searching for ammunition, they're drawing on their classwork or assignments. These are all red flags. And what would a reasonable person do? They would do something about it, right? So the jury is presented with both grossly negligence, and then they're also presented with that standard. What a reasonable person do? It's reasonable care. It's not helicopter mom, nothing crazy, just what would be reasonable. They're giving both these standards, and it doesn't have to be both. They can choose one path or the other. They could convict Jennifer Crumbley on being grossly negligent, or they can convict Jennifer Crumbley on just the reasonable standard of care, or both, because I feel that both exist in this particular case. I'm not advocating that this is something that happens with all cases, but in this particular case, given the entirety of everything that we know, I feel that it's both grossly negligence, and that standard of care, that reasonable care standard, was just not met. So that's my impression. Now I want to go over one more thing. So the jurors, they dwindled them down to 12. They were receiving their instructions, and I just want you to hear from the judge what she says needs to be how they deliberate. So one second, I just have to I want you to hear this.
Extended live coverage of Jennifer Crumbley on trial.
Okay.
You are looking live inside the.
I apologize. There's two videos, and it'd be great to watch them both if you have time. The videos are one is from AWXYZ TV Detroit, and I will give you the name of the other video. So these charges apply to each victim, but the judge is going to go over them for each victim. So it's 4 victims. Well, it was more than 4 victims, but 4 victims for the involuntary manslaughter charges.
Of storing a firearm and its ammunition so as to allow access to the firearm and ammunition by her minor child. Second, in doing that act caused Madison Baldwin's death, the defendant acted in a grossly negligent manner. In count 2, the defendant was charged with crime of involuntary manslaughter. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, the defendant caused the death of Tate Muir. That is, that Tate Muir died as a result of storing a firearm and its ammunition so as to allow access to the firearm and ammunition by her minor child. Second, in doing the act that caused Tate Muir's death, the defendant acted in a grossly negligent manner. In count 3, the defendant is charged with the crime of involuntary manslaughter. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, the defendant caused the death of Hannah St. Juliana. That is, that Hannah St. Juliana died as a result of storing a firearm and its ammunition.
Alternative,
the prosecutor claims that the defendant committed involuntary manslaughter because she was grossly negligent. Those theories are 2 different ways to prove the same crime. Either or both of these theories, if proven, are sufficient to establish the crime of involuntary manslaughter. It's not necessary that you all agree on which theory has been proven, as long as you all agree that the prosecutor has proved at least one of those theories beyond a reasonable doubt. In count 1, the defendant is charged with the crime of involuntary manslaughter resulting from the failure to perform a legal duty. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant had a legal duty to Madison Baldwin. The legal duty charged here is one imposed by law. In Michigan, a parent has a legal duty to exercise reasonable care to control their minor child so as to prevent the minor child from intentionally harming others or prevent the minor child from conducting themselves in a way that creates an unreasonable risk of bodily harm to others. This duty arises when both of the following are true. A, the parent knows or has reason to know that they have the ability to control their minor child. And B, the parent knows of the necessity and opportunity for exercising such control. Second, the defendant knew of the facts that gave rise to the duty. Third, the defendant willfully neglected or refused to perform that duty, and her failure to perform it was grossly negligent to human life. Fourth, the death of Madison Baldwin was directly caused by defendant's failure to perform this duty. That is, that Madison Baldwin died as a result of the defendant's failure to exercise reasonable care to control her minor child so as to prevent the minor child from intentionally harming others, or the minor child from so conducting himself so as to create an unreasonable risk of bodily harm to others when the defendant knew that she had the ability to control her minor child and knew of the necessity and opportunity to do so. In count 2, the defendant is...
Okay, so again, I'm not going to go all over the place with the legal wording. There's 2 paths. It's the grossly negligent path, and it's the standard path, which is, in this case, is reasonable care. If the juror feels that either path, did you demonstrate that you were grossly negligent, or did you demonstrate that you didn't exercise reasonable care, the juror can say guilt. Okay, so I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. I just wanted to give you an update that the jury, they have the case now. They've had the case since approximately, we'll just say 10 a.m. So we don't know if there's a verdict in. Sometimes they'll hold it over to the next day to, announce it all in one day in the a.m. So they may have a verdict and they just haven't announced it and they'll come on tomorrow with the verdict, because I don't understand what would take so long in this case. It seemed pretty straightforward to me. So hopefully we'll have a verdict tomorrow. So we're on verdict watch, right? We want to know and have closure to this case, and then we can look forward to Mr. Crumbley's case. And again, please let me know what you think. Do you feel that the charge against James Crumbley should be involuntary manslaughter? Um, it's pretty hard. It's pretty tough because I just don't think Mr. Crumbley was as egregious as Mrs. Crumbley. I guess we need to hear the evidence. I know if they get a conviction with Jennifer Crumbley, the prosecution may move forward on the involuntary manslaughter charges for Mr. Crumbley. If they don't get a conviction for Mrs. Crumbley, I'm not sure how they could get a conviction against Mr. Crumbley. I watched countless hours of interviews and video. I just do not see the same level of, energy, in the sense of he appeared to be regretful, be remorseful, and I cannot get that out of my head when he was screaming, "I love you, I love." He just kept saying it to Ethan Crumbley. All kids, they're going to make mistakes, they're going to disappoint us. And him being a parent just like me, I could see myself screaming this out, because Ethan Crumbley, he is still alive. They can go and see him. They can hug him. His parents have access to him. Although he is behind bars, he is being punished. They can call. They can talk. They can talk to him. They can go and visit him if they're free. They can write letters to him. They still have him in their life. He did something bad. He did something wrong. So I just don't feel the case is as strong against James Crumbley. I started thinking a little bit about what could he be charged with. Maybe they would offer him like a neglect charge for just failing to store the weapon and put the lock on it and keep the ammunition separate. Maybe some type of neglect charge, because you see that across the country. You see a lot of lower charges. So maybe that's something that he would consider, and maybe even plead to, where, the family can have closure. I don't know, but we'll see. We are on verdict watch right now. We're waiting to see what the outcome is going to be. So hopefully we will have a verdict tomorrow. It's pretty late here, so I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I think it will be tomorrow, if they have come to some type of unanimous decision. So we will see, and I will be back here for it to let you know, and possibly be able to wrap up this Jennifer Crumbley case, just waiting on the sentencing if she's convicted, because you guys already know how Hidden Horror feels. You know how I feel. And it's been hard. I know it's been hard on the families. I watched a few interviews. It's hard. It's just very hard. I feel for the victims' families. Had me in tears last night just going over some of the victims' families' statements and interviews, and they're popping up. And, I have all prayers for them that they can have some closure, some peace, and be able to move on with their life as best they can to pick up the pieces. So let's hopefully, get a verdict tomorrow, and we'll come back and wrap it up and wait for her sentencing. I'm sorry, I'm already telling you guys my mindset, but we will see. We will see what happens. Hopefully we will have a decision soon, so we can have some closure and be able to move forward from this case. Now, I wanted to just say, I have not forgot about the Idaho 4. However, when Jennifer Crumbley's trial started, it just went so quick. It was done in 2 weeks. And so I had to kind of shift and kind of go and watch this trial. So I will be shifting back to the Idaho 4. I have about 4 more videos in the mini series that was leading up to my thoughts about who I felt could possibly be the killer or killers of the Idaho 4 victims. So the little series is going to pick back up after the verdict. And there's about 4 more videos with that. So I have to do a whole complete shift because that is a homicide, an ongoing case that hasn't gone to trial yet, but we're still talking about some of the evidence and some of the lack of evidence and possible witnesses, things like that. So those videos are to come in that little mini series of about 7-8 videos. And it will culminate with who I feel could possibly be the killer or killer. So we probably got about 4 or 5 more videos in that. I'm not quite sure yet. So I will pick up with that after everything is wrapped up. Hopefully tomorrow with this Jennifer Crumbley case. And then, of course, we still will have the possible sentencing to cover. Okay, so thanks for checking out this video. Please let me know if you would like guilty or not guilty, and we will see. We will see if there will be a verdict soon, okay? Remember, please stay smart, stay safe, stay savvy, all my friends. Have a good night. Bye, everybody. Bye. Good night.